All right, Nick, let's talk about the Kansas City Chiefs as we're legally obligated to say, reigning, defending back-to-back Super Bowl champion Chiefs. And what do you do if you're the back-to-back defending Super Bowl champions? You make really smart moves. And in the wake of some, crucial injuries to the Chiefs receiving core, there's an expected move everyone thought the Chiefs would make. They went a completely different route, and I think it's really, really smart. I'm Andrew, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. And Nick, as I was alluding to, I think everyone knows the injury to Rashee Rice is looming. I think that's a hole that needs to be filled on this Chiefs roster. Everyone's probably expecting the Chiefs to go find either a trade partner or the Chiefs saying we're going to keep it in-house, so elevate a receiver off of the practice squad. That is not what they did. They did something that I think you'll agree was much, much smarter. Let's get into the article and we can talk more about it on the other side. This is from over on Athlon Sports. It says the Kansas City Chiefs remain undefeated heading into Week 5. However, there's major concern regarding Patrick Mahomes' options at wide receiver. The Chiefs were expected to elevate a wide receiver from the practice squad before Week 5 with special teams coordinator Dave Toub floating both Nico Remigio and Montrell Washington as options, especially in the scenario Mecole Hardman can't start on Monday Night Football. However, Kansas City ultimately went in a different direction. The Chiefs decided to elevate tight end Jody Fortson to the active roster. Per Arrowhead Pride's Pete Sweeney, of course, finding a true replacement for Rice, who recorded 24 receptions, 288 yards, and 2 touchdowns in 4 games, is impossible without facilitating a major trade. If anyone can figure out a creative way to successfully insert Fortson into the offense, it's Chiefs head coach Andy Reid. Nick, I think this is a really great move. I know Fortson's kind of a fan favorite. He's a guy who's been around for a little while. I think great move by the Chiefs. I'm curious what your thoughts are on this one. But before we get to you, Nick, Chiefs fans, in the comment section below, new look. Now you kind of got an idea of what the Chiefs are going to go for in this Monday night matchup against the New Orleans Saints. And usually we ask you, what do you think the score is? I got a little bit different question for you. Who do you think is going to be the leading receiver Monday night for the Chiefs against the Saints? I think there's a lot of different options. Is it going to be tight end? Is another wide receiver going to rise to the top? Who do you think is going to fill the role with Hollywood Brown and Rashee Rice out of the fold? Let us know in the comment section below. But Nick, what are your thoughts on this latest move by the Chiefs?
I absolutely love it, right? We know, and the article mentioned it, right? Rashee Rice's production and talent, you're not going to replace by elevating anybody off the practice squad. Frankly, barring giving up an incredible amount of capital to get a guy like Devontae Adams, but you're not going to get that trade division. We all know that's not going to happen. But unless you're willing to give up a lot to trade for a big time receiver, you're not going to replace Rice's production in this offense by going outside the framework of the team either. And here's the other thing: even if you went outside the framework of the team, it would take weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks to integrate the new weapon into the Chiefs offense, to get them on the same page as Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, famously, we talk about it all the time, spends a lot of time in the offseason working with his receivers and tight ends to get them all on the same page, right? You'll lose that if you go outside the organization to try and find another receiver. And here's the other thing: you're not going to be able to replace Rashee Rice's production. You're just not going to be able to do it. So you have to switch up your strategy. You have to go away from, okay, instead of being multiple wide receiver sets, let's go bigger. Let's change how we're going to go out there personnel-wise. Force defenses to adjust. Because if you throw out another wide receiver just to replace Rashee Rice, for example, teams that have been watching your film on you all year, they get to go out with the same strategy, and now you're a lesser personnel, right? You got worse at receiver, Rashee Rice is hurt, but you stay with the same personnel, so every single defense can stick with what their strategy was going to be to try and stop you. However, if you switch to heavier personnel packages, this is what the Chiefs are going to do going forward. You now have an extra tight end in the game. Suddenly, teams have to change up what their thought was. Teams have to change up their strategies. Teams have to change their personnel packages. It keeps your opponents off balance. This is why I think Andy Reid and Veach and company here came up with a really smart move here. A lot of people were really clamoring for them to make a big trade. And look, they still might, depending on how the strategy works out for them. But I think this is really, really good, because now every team going forward, starting with the Saints on Monday night, they're going to have to completely change it up. Coming into the season with the addition of Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, Rashee Rice, of course, everyone was looking at the Chiefs and like, okay, they're going back to the big play down the field stuff. We're going to have to completely adjust our strategies to not give up the 50, 60-yard bombs. Now, suddenly, mid-season, everyone's had that strategy. Everyone's had that defensive game plan. Now, suddenly, the Chiefs have completely flipped. Now they're going to be a 12, 13 personnel, one running back, two tight end, one running back, three tight end team, probably the rest of the year. And every single defensive coach that spent all offseason trying to figure out a way to beat the Chiefs has to literally take their game plan and throw it away. Meanwhile, the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, they maintain their continuity because they did it in-house. Again, not going to be perfect, obviously, because there's certainly some talent deficiencies with all these injuries. But in terms of making the very, very best of a bad situation, credit to the Chiefs for pulling it off.
Yeah, Nick, and there's some other hidden aspects I think Fortson brings in. Obviously, you got Noah Gray, you got Travis Kelce, and as well as the young guy, Jared Wiley, in there as well. But I think Fortson brings a lot of stuff to the table for the Chiefs in the run blocking game. This is a guy, if you get him out there, he's been pretty dang good. In the last 2 seasons, he was playing fully in 2021, 2022. He graded a 73.9 overall run blocking grade and an 85.8 overall run blocking grade. This is a guy 6'6", 230 some odd pounds. He's really been impressive in the run blocking game. So I think that's another aspect. Get a guy out there who not only can help, he's been great at catching passes. This guy can be useful in that aspect, but also have someone that's multifaceted that can be a great blocker for the team as well. I just think it's like you were alluding to. This is a really smart move. Get a guy that's been around your team. He knows the ins and outs. He can come in, help in multiple different ways. I think this is going to be better than any receiver that you can get for the short term. And I think for the long term as well, because Rashee Rice is coming back. You don't want to waste all of these assets and, go out and get a big time wide receiver if you don't need one. Whether it's the end of this year or next year when he comes back, I don't think, the jury's kind of out. That situation's a little bit murky, but I don't think you need to go spend all that capital if you can get by with a guy like Fortson because he seems very useful in many different situations.
Yeah, one final point to hit on, and you hit on something that are very important, is that we know with this Chiefs team, we saw it last year, they don't have to be 14-3 going into the postseason to make a run to the Super Bowl title. Right now, the way they've started the season off to obviously an undefeated start, they just have to get there, win their division, get the home playoff game or two if they can, and then get to the playoffs. That's their goal. And they're, already so far 4 games into it, on a perfect stretch, right? So they don't have to go, okay, how do we figure out a way to win the next 9 of 11 games? They don't have to do that. They could actually finish out the season basically 500 the rest of the way, right? Let's say they go 6-7 the rest of the way. Not going to happen. Let's say they do. They're 10-7, probably win the division, and they go to the playoffs and they make a run for a title then. So they don't have to worry about, gosh, how do we win Monday? How do we win Sunday after that? They get to focus 100% on building the right team, the right strategy for the postseason. It means they don't have to make dumb, over-aggressive moves like over-trading for a player right now. Again, smart decision by the Chiefs here. Regardless of what happens the rest of the way, we all know they're still preparing for a postseason run, and this move here will help them with that.